Welcome everyone to this cinematic educational video lecture. I'm Dr. Chem, and today we're diving straight into the fascinating and, honestly, sometimes super deceptive world of data visualization. We rely on charts for massive decisions, right? Everything from whether a life-saving drug goes to market to how billions in research funding gets spent. So let's just jump right into this explainer and see how graphs can totally manipulate our eyes and how we can use statistical tools as our magnifying glass to uncover the actual truth.
So look at this question. Can a mathematically completely accurate graph still lie to you? We're so conditioned to trust numbers implicitly, right? You see a chart in a peer-reviewed paper and you just think, well, numbers don't lie. But here's the crazy part. It is absolutely possible for 100% accurate data to tell a completely misleading visual story. And I really want to stress this. Without changing a single underlying number, the way a graph is built can totally warp our perception of reality. It's literally a sleight of hand right in front of our faces.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. First, when graphs lie to us. Second, enter the error bar. Third, standard deviation versus standard error. Fourth, the confidence interval. Alternative. And finally, 5, the overlapping bar myth. Starting off with Section 1, when graphs lie to us. Now, visual manipulation usually starts with the frame itself, specifically the truncated y-axis. It's a classic trick. Imagine two medical treatments, and there's just a tiny 4-point difference in their outcomes. If you start your y-axis at 0, like you see on the left, that gap looks exactly like what it is. Tiny, maybe even insignificant. But look at the right side. If you take some metaphorical scissors and just snip the y-axis to start right below the lowest value, suddenly that exact same 4-point difference looks like a landslide. If this were a drug trial, you'd be thinking you found a miracle cure, when really it's just barely better than a placebo. The data is identical, but the visual story is completely different. And Empire Stats really hits the nail on the head here, noting how this truncation makes small differences look massive. This is incredibly dangerous with bar charts especially. Why? Because our brains are hardwired to process physical proportions. The actual physical height of the bar represents the value. So if you just chop off the bottom, you completely destroy the visual proportion. Your brain is automatically comparing the heights of those colored blocks. So a tiny 5% mathematical bump suddenly registers in your mind as a whopping 200% increase.
Moving right along to Section 2, enter the error bar.
Okay, so once we make sure our axes are actually honest, we still have to deal with averages. You really have to be careful about squashing a whole population down to a single mean, because averages are notoriously good at hiding how data actually behaves in the wild. Think about it like this. If I tell you a city's average temperature is 70 degrees, you'd probably pack for a perfect, mild vacation. But what if it's 120 degrees in the summer and 20 degrees in the winter? The average is still 70, but you're going to be absolutely miserable. Looking at box plots and scatter plots like these is a great reminder that real data is noisy. It scatters, and averages just strip all that beautiful, messy reality right away. Which brings us exactly to why we use error bars, those little whiskers you see tacked on to the ends of bars and data points. You can think of them as your built-in shield against getting duped by a simple average. Because plotting every single dot for, say, 10,000 patients would be an unreadable nightmare, these whiskers give us a clean, mathematical summary of all that variability. They literally tell us how much we should trust that bold line representing the mean. Which naturally leads us to Section 3, standard deviation versus standard error. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because not all error bars are created equal. I like to call this the two hats of statistics. When you see a whisker, you have to ask, which hat is this researcher wearing? Standard deviation wears the descriptive hat. It's just showing you the raw physical spread of your actual measurements. If you're weighing dogs, it shows you the span from the lightest Chihuahua to the heaviest Mastiff. But standard error, that wears the inferential hat. It's not trying to describe your specific subjects at all. It's estimating how precisely you've pinned down the theoretical true population average.
And this brings us to an open secret in scientific publishing, captured perfectly by this quote from Dr. Glantz. It's almost scandalous, really. Researchers will sometimes quietly swap hats and use standard error simply because it creates tighter, smaller whiskers. Since the math guarantees it'll always be smaller than standard deviation, it makes their data look way more precise to the casual reader, even if the actual raw data behind the scenes is scattered all over the place.
But why is it always smaller? Well, it's just the math. To get standard error, you divide the standard deviation by the square root of your sample size. This means as your sample size goes up, your standard error automatically shrinks, giving you a narrower range. You could measure 10,000 people who are wildly, completely different from one another, but because your sample is so huge, your standard error whisker will be microscopic. It can totally mask a chaotic reality. This brings us to Section 4, the confidence interval alternative. Since standard error is so easily misinterpreted, we really need a better tool for this explainer, something that intuitively communicates uncertainty. Enter the 95% confidence interval. This is pretty much the gold standard. It translates all that abstract math into a highly practical range. And why 95%? Well, in science, accepting a 5% margin of error has kind of become the universal sweet spot for statistical significance. It's rigorous, but not impossible to achieve. The beauty of a 95% confidence interval is that it gives us a realistic zone. It's actually derived from the standard error. You'd basically just multiply the standard error by roughly 1.96. You definitely don't need to memorize that math, but here's what you do need to know in plain English. If you were to run your exact experiment 100 times, collecting 100 fresh sets of data, 95 of those calculated intervals would successfully trap the true population average. So, this approach isn't just visually honest. It fundamentally represents physical reality. When you look at a 95% confidence interval error bar, you can look at that bracket and think, okay, the true answer is highly likely to be living somewhere right inside this zone. It takes all the guesswork out of the graph and gives you a tangible window of truth.
Finally, let's tackle Section 5, the overlapping bar myth.
We are ending on a trap that catches absolutely everyone, from casual readers to veteran scientists. Have you ever looked at a graph, seen two error bars overlapping, and just instantly assumed, well, there's no statistically significant difference there? It is completely human nature. Our eyes see the zones touching and our brains go, yep, they're the same. But statistically speaking, that quick visual shortcut is actually deeply flawed.
Software like GraphPad is very clear about this. You have to resist the temptation to just eyeball it. Overlapping standard deviation or standard error bars absolutely do not rule out statistical significance. And that's because real statistical tests, like a t-test, factor in your sample size, which a simple visual overlap just ignores. If you're testing a blood pressure med on 10,000 people, you could have massive overlap in your standard deviation bars, but the sheer volume of data gives the math the power to prove that tiny difference is in fact highly significant.
Krzyzewski and Altman summed it up perfectly here. Whether a gap or an overlap means anything completely depends on what type of bar the author decided to use in the first place. You literally cannot determine if a difference is real just by glancing at the whiskers. You need the actual math, the real p-values, to know for sure.
So, as we wrap up today's lecture, keep these 3 golden rules in your back pocket. Number 1, check your baselines. Make sure the y-axis starts at 0 so you aren't falling for the truncation trick. Number 2, identify the error bars. Are you looking at the raw spread of standard deviation, the artificially tight standard error, or a robust confidence interval? And number 3, please never judge significance purely by eye. Let the actual statistics do the talking.
So, I'll leave you with this. The next time you see a flashy, colorful scientific graph pop up on the news or in a journal, will you just blindly trust the solid bars, or will you zoom in and look closely at the whiskers to uncover the real story? Because I promise you, the truth is almost always hiding right there in the margins. Thanks for joining me, Dr. Kim, for this cinematic educational video lecture. Stay curious, keep questioning the data, and we'll see you next time.